Guys, it's Jennibellie. We have some recycled buttons to make today, which are going to come in useful for my next tutorial as well, which I'll give you a sneak peek at, but you're not seeing a lot because I like to keep you guys guessing. So the materials that you are going to need are, first of all, you're going to need cardboard, both the corrugated cardboard kind and also thin food packaging like a pizza box or cereal box. Next you'll need tissue paper. I have these from parcels that have been sent that have been padded out with this paper, and also from shoe boxes. A punching tool, here I have a crocodile, a pokey tool or awl, and some scissors. And some wet glue like PVA glue or Mod Podge, and some double-sided adhesive. You will also need something to decorate your buttons with, so some acrylic paint and some ink pads. And finally you will need some glaze. Glossy accents or diamond glaze is fine. You can also use UT or some other embossing powder to not only give it extra strength but to give it a nice ceramic look. For this tutorial I'm going to use diamond glaze. Okay, so how I make the button base is I first cut up the thick cardboard into squares because I find this the easiest way to create a circle by just cutting off the edges and wasting the minimum amount of cardboard. You can of course draw around a penny or something if you want all of your buttons to be the same size. I prefer the handmade look. Now with the thinner cardboard, what I'm doing is added double-sided adhesive before I cut them up into squares, because what I'm next going to do is on both sides of the thicker cardboard stick one of these smaller circles of thin cardboard that I'm adding. It's just going to create a three-dimensional look with the buttons rather than keeping them two-dimensional, and I find it easier to add the adhesive first rather than doing it afterwards. So that's a little tip for you. So I'm adding all of the thinner cardboard onto the thicker cardboard front and back, and what I'm next going to do is just punch 2 holes in the buttons with my crocodile to create the button effect. Okay, so hardening the buttons. How we're going to do that is we're going to cut up the tissue paper into squares, and then we're essentially going to wrap it around the button. I'll break this down so you can see it in stages. So first we're going to take the square and wet it with our wet glue. Place the button in the centre and wrap it over the other side. On the other side, wet it again with glue and wrap it in paper. So you're essentially dualling both sides with a sheet of paper. Fold it all the ends in and then poke holes on both sides of the button. And the base that I'm putting the buttons on is just a piece of cardboard covered in packaging tape. It's basically a makeshift non-stick mat, but essentially these are very wet buttons, so they will stick. So after about half an hour or so, come back and just pull them up off of the mat to make sure that they don't adhere to it. If you want to harden the buttons some more at this stage, you can add some extra layers of paper to them, or you can do as I'm doing here and just add an extra layer of wet glue before we decorate them. We are going to glaze them, so it's not necessarily necessary for you to do this, but you might just want to add some extra hardness to it so that these buttons do last. So to decorate the buttons you can of course just paint them with acrylic paint, but I'm going to show you a way to very quickly saturate them with colour. Here I have ink pads that have a very soft base to them, a lot of spongy base, and what that does is it makes it very easy to transfer the colour quickly. I mean, look how saturated these buttons are becoming. They are quite a fiddly thing to paint, so you can paint them if you want, but I just wanted to show you this very quick way to completely change the colour of your buttons. Using a spray as well might also be a very quick way to colour them. Now how I like to decorate them as well is very similar. I use the ink pads with a range of different stencils. Here you can see I have some sequin mesh, but I use them with all kinds of different stencils to give my buttons some nice design, and it just makes them a little bit more dimensional and have a little bit more interest to them. Finishing touches, Jennibellie special finishing touches to your buttons. What I first like to do is to go around the edges with an ink pad, because that of course first defines it. So I'm using black here just so that you can really see clearly what I'm talking about. And then I use a Q-tip to go in the holes of the button. So what I do is I saturate the end of the Q-tip with the ink from the coordinating ink pad, and then I push it into the holes of the buttons, and it really gives defined button look. For glazing the buttons, I prefer diamond glaze to glossy accents, and the only reason is because it dries quicker, but it also dries a lot thinner as well. Glossy accents is a little bit thicker, and I prefer it on my affirmation tiles, but for the buttons, for some reason, I just prefer to have a thinner glaze to it. And as you can see, the diamond glaze does go on as quickly and as easily as what glossy accents does. Now obviously glazing your buttons is non-essential, but it does, I think, take your buttons up to another level, as well as really hardening them and making sure that they are going to be long wearing. Now, as you know, the next project is going to include these buttons, but what I thought I would just show you is a journal page where I added some buttons as well, and then the rest of the elements on here are very simple elements, and I just added buttons to the page that have a very grungy look to them, similar in colours, just to give the page a little bit more dimension and impact. And that's it. Don't forget that now I am on Facebook, so if you like this tutorial, please head over to my page and hit the like button to get sneak peeks at upcoming tutorials and journal pages and things. And of course you can always find me at my blog jennibellie-stylie.blogspot.co.uk, where I share my artwork as well as the thoughts, feelings and processes that go on behind the artwork, and where I host weekly artist interviews. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you for the next one. Much love, bye bye!